Hello, this is Nick from Breaker Press Games, and I wanted to talk today about magic and mystery in DCC RPG. And this is something that I've been carrying with me for a number of years now. When I first read from the Sacred Tome, the Dungeon Crawl Classics rulebook, and it's something that's really stuck with me. And there's kind of a disparity, I think, in the approach to monsters versus the approach to magic. But the monster end of things is really what kind of stuck with me. Now I'm going to read a passage called "Making Monsters Mysterious." I'm just going to read the first paragraph. A key element of player experience in the Dungeon Crawl Classics role-playing game is a sense of wonderment. Your job as judge is to convey the sense of the unknown. That was so easy to achieve when we were children who did not know all the rules. One way to achieve this is to make monsters mysterious. The less the players are able to predict about the specifics of an encounter, and the more they depend on role-playing hearsay, legends, and lore, the more exciting their encounters will be, regardless of monster statistics. And for some reason, when I read that, and there's a number of other passages in this book that really emphasize, keeping things mysterious and unknown. And when I brought magic into my very first campaign, I kind of approached it differently than how the Wizard Grimoire starts out, which is all wizards are jealous with their knowledge, as a wizard's safety is only ensured insofar as he can best his strongest rival. There are no schools of magic, only masters willing to take apprentices. Yes, yet masters are miserly in their training, lest the prices of their devil bargains be bargained higher by too many callers. There are secrets in the deep places, and he who knows the most gains an advantage. As such, a wizard's spellbook or grimoire is never particularly thick. Its contents are determined as much by the chance of falling of cosmic dust as by anything else. Every spell is rare and powerful, ingredients are scarce, rituals are lengthy, and mind, soul, and body can be threatened with each casting. Thus, grimoires are guarded fiercely. And then it goes on to determining spells randomly. And so, because of the idea that spells are so rare, and they come from these demonic entities, or from gods, bestowing their feelings on their followers, or their interest on their followers. I ended up taking a different approach, and in my first campaign, I'm going to talk about Dante's Wizard. So I had a player named Dante, and he was my first wizard. We played a 0-level funnel, and that 0-level funnel didn't have anything that gave a potential 0-level character a spell book. There were no spell books, no scrolls, nothing of that kind. Long story short, when he made the decision that he wanted to become a wizard, I wanted to keep it mysterious. And so I rolled up a number of spells randomly, but did not tell him what they were. And I just told him that when the time comes, focus your energy. And so he was like, okay, I can deal with that. And there was a point where he decided that they needed help in a combat, and he decided to channel his energy. And at that moment, I said, roll a d20, and that's when he unleashed his first Burning Hand spells. But I didn't tell him at that moment that it was Burning Hands. I went through the manifestation and all of that, and then he got his dice roll, and he had an understanding that it was Burning Hands or some other similar spell, but it was something that was unleashed in the moment. And there was something very kind of exciting and mysterious about that. And so it kind of stuck with me, and it's been evolving over time as to how I utilize this. And so after the Dante experience, I ran into a situation that was unique and interesting. That took place at a convention. I was running the Precipice of Corruption at Midwinter, which takes place here in Milwaukee. And a guy showed up at my table, and he had a set of tarot dice or story cubes. I'm not sure which. And he had a 0 level character that was an astrologer. Might have been a fortune teller. It was one of the two. But needless to say, at various points, he just, on his own, hit moments, and he rolled his story cubes and tried to interpret what his tarot reading was, and then he would show me, okay, so in this moment, what happens? And so I actually, even though he was a 0 level character, because of the fact that I like the idea of this mysterious energy being channeled through somebody and them emerging from their experience on the other side as a first level wizard, I decided to turn those story cube elements into their first spells. And so he seemed really, really into it. He was enjoying the role playing of the moment and the emergent play, and I was too. And I was like, oh, I really like this. I'm definitely going to do this sort of thing again. And so really kind of tried to encourage players in future sessions that if you want to do something, even though you don't have the abilities of these classes, give it to me. Tell me what it is that you want to do, and we'll see if the gods look kindly upon you. And so the next experience that I had was with my friend Shane, and once again, another group, Precipice of Corruption. We finished the Precipice of Corruption, and we decided to continue it on into a campaign. And he asked me, he wanted to have a adventure, a training exercise tailored to his character. And so I was like, yeah, I mean, that's super cool. I'm way into it. And in the span of a week, I wrote the first draft of the Path of the Valorous, which is part of the Protectorate of Genulain, which is an adventure that I'm hoping to unleash later this year. But so I ran him through this, kind of Luke on Dagobah type training scenario, where he basically had to follow along a path and go through various trials set upon him by followers of Gorham the Helmed Vengeance. And he did something that was really unique, that was unexpected. So I was savvy enough when I wrote the initial thing to have various, bits of prose that were in the name, poems in the name of followers of Gorhan, and recited them to him at various points from the various NPCs within the Tower of Genulain. And he remembered or wrote down a number of these bits and pieces. And so he hit a situation where he was stuck. And so he recited the blessing almost word for word. And so in that moment, I was like, yeah, that's, I flipped to the page for bless and had him roll a d20. And I was like, let's see what happens. And didn't tell him that it was a bless spell, but told him that, a surge of energy and reinforced faith had coursed through him, and he got the cue that, oh, I've just cast some sort of blessing, and would do that in other circumstances for the rest of the campaign. And I loved this. And he would take up bits and pieces, and I think at one point he even made up a little litany of his own. But this was one of these situations where he already had knowledge of things that clerics could do, like turning undead and laying on hands, and so he automatically, because of that ingrained knowledge, that kind of like institutional knowledge from years of D&D, he knew what his cleric could do, but we still gave it a level of mystery, and that was really enjoyable to me. So now we're going to take it to my most recent campaign. And in my most recent campaign, my friend Darren had a character named Dog. And Dog decided to become, upon transitioning to first level, to become a wizard. And this was my first stumbling block, because I told Darren that I preferred Emergent play, and that because he said to me, he's like, "What are my spells?" And I said, "You don't have any." And he looked at me like I was crazy. And so I explained to him, my experiences with Emergent play, and he took things in a completely different direction that I never expected. And it was so exciting to witness it. In fact, it reached a point where I couldn't wait to find out what crazy nonsense he would do next. So after him, me telling him that I wasn't going to give him spells, but I had this concept of emergent play, he took things into his own hands, and he's a guy that when you walk into a tavern, he wants to know what's on the menu. Walks into a trader's store and wants to know what's on the shelves. And I ended up, because the DCC rulebook doesn't have a lot of strange and unusual equipment, I actually pulled out Ben Milton's Knave, because there's a lot more unique stuff on some of the charts in Knave. And I also like that it's the copper standard, and I play with the copper standard. So Darren and his character Dog ended up going through this general store and buying a pipe and a vase and a bag of marbles, just all of this like random stuff. He spent every last thing that he had acquired from their adventuring so far, blew everything that he had, and just had this random mishmash of stuff. And long story short, he ends up, the first thing that he pulls is he decides that he is going to try and charm person. And so he goes into the tavern, and he gets right up in the face of a bar patron and just starts reciting a bunch of inspirational quotes, and self affirmation type quotes, but at the person. And then I say, well, all right, roll a d20, and he failed, and so he failed to charm the person. But this became a running gag whenever he tried to charm person. He took it to the next level when he decided that he was going to cast Choking Cloud. And that pipe and that vase and some other things that he had bought, actually, when there was a moment of peril in that same tavern, they were being pursued by a jailer that was coming to arrest one of them for murder. Ultimately, he decides that he is going to tell me that, okay, so I had put a hole in my vase, and I shoved the pipe in it, and I'm shoving this old sock into the. Essentially, he built a bong, and lit the bong and took a deep inhale and then blew out. And I was like, roll a d20. And so, and mind you, in the moment, he had never explained that that's what these random items were for. It was a complete surprise. And he also spellburned and got this spell off, and ultimately killed everybody in the tavern. A whole nother set of issues with that. But he got his choking cloud. So this was a little different than how I would normally handle things, where I try to have things kind of emerge organically. He had that institution knowledge. These are the types of spells that I want to be able to cast. And he tried to come up with ways to assemble the pieces to make that happen. And the marbles that he acquired, he threw up into the air, said that he he rolled his d20, but he made it clear that he was casting a spell, color spray. And so all of these moments were like, it was one of those things where I was waiting, like it had been like 3 or 4 sessions since he bought the marbles. I knew the marbles were going to get used for something, but what, I did not know. And then he unleashes the color spray, and it rained as a hail of color, which was a fun and exciting moment. So, you know, what is my message in all of this? And that's that I love the idea of keeping magic mysterious. And there's all different ways that it can play out. But it is a way to keep that, you know, there's, as Goodman writes in Making Monsters Mysterious, there's that childlike wonder. That when you know what all of the spells are, when you know what all of the monsters are, it is hard to have that first time type of experience. And these are ways in which that you can preserve that new and exciting type of experience. And I've really enjoyed it. There was another adventure that I'm not going to go into deep detail on, but I had I was playtesting Cleft of the Mangled Hills, and there is that adventure is written in order to get a grimoire into the hands of 0-level characters. And it was exciting seeing these 2 0-level characters essentially wrestling over a book in order to get the knowledge out of it. Now, the last thing that I'm going to end on is something that I have used to help facilitate all of these things, and I will refer to them as invading entities. And what I have done is, if there is a character that's a fortune teller, an astrologer, or if I notice that a character has extremely high intelligence at 0 level, and they seem like they might go in the wizarding type of direction, I give them dreams. And so I will have a water elemental named Hashik come to them in their dreams, or I will have them dream where a mouth of smoke and fire speaks to them, which is a fire elemental from another adventure that I've been working on. The idea being that these, especially with the type of emergent play, having these kind of signifiers, these things to kind of like push people in a direction where these patrons are actually actively courting, these minor patrons are actively courting people, and they might ignore them, or they might be like, yes, I want this power. And that's been a lot of fun. So this is my ideas on magic and mystery in DCC RPG. I hope you found that interesting. I know that I really enjoy this type of play, and my players seem to enjoy it too, though at first for a few, it's jarring because they're like, hey, what are my spells? And then I'm like, yeah, they're coming. Thank you for listening. Hopefully this was enjoyable, and thanks for supporting indie games and indie game designers. This is Nick signing off. Bye.